Hey everyone, I'm a 36-year-old guy. My ex-wife, Avery, who's 29, and I were married for just 3 years before things took a turn for the worse, and she showed her true colors. Avery and I dated for about a year and a half before tying the knot. Early on, I shared with Avery my ambition to start my own business. I poured all my energy into it, working tirelessly day and night, alongside my regular job. I split my earnings, using my main job's income for daily expenses and the extra from my part-time gig to invest in my venture. Avery was a sales manager at a retail store, so I figured she had insight into business. Initially, she was incredibly supportive, urging me to strive for growth. But once we were married, her enthusiasm waned. She'd joke about me prioritizing other things over the business if it wasn't immediately successful. Yet, I remained resolute because this venture was my passion, and I knew it had potential. Fast forward to the first year of our marriage. After several meetings and much persuasion, I got a big break when one of my wealthy friends volunteered to invest in my business. Avery and I were over the moon, celebrating our win. She pretended to believe in me and continuously pushed me to get things done. My business was a small logistics company, a dream I had nursed for a long time. I believed that with proper management and funds, my logistics company would become one of the biggest companies in our state. With the funding, I purchased more delivery bikes, bicycles, and a truck for moving things. With more bikes and bicycles added to what we already had, business boomed, and our earnings increased. I also invested some money in marketing and signage, which paid off. However, I found a significant change in Avery's mindset soon after I got the investment. Before that money came in, Avery and I had no major reason to fight. Even if we argued about something or disagreed on something, we always settled it before we went to bed. But after the funding came, Avery and I fought most days, and the reason was money. She argued because she wanted me to give her some money for shopping, move us into a bigger apartment, and go for a week's vacation, all with the money that was meant to be invested in my business. When I kicked against the idea, she was mad. I understood the shopping aspect and even promised to give her money to buy a beautiful Chanel bag she had admired. But she wanted more. She claimed she was happy with the investment because she thought she would benefit from it. I was shocked at her demands because she knew how my business had been struggling and how hard I had worked and prayed for a financial miracle every day. And when it came, I wasn't expecting her to make such demands, not at that time. Even if I were to take her shopping, move into a bigger apartment, or take her on vacation, it would have been from the profit I made from my business in the long run, rather than from the money I was supposed to invest and grow with. Countless times I told her the money was not for our personal use, it was meant to be returned with interest to my investor friend. But everything I said fell on deaf ears, and she wouldn't stop nagging about it. She started calling me selfish and said I was trying to take all the money my friend gave me from myself, even when I didn't work for it. When her words did not affect me as she expected, she switched to the emotional aspect and would cry all night. For that whole week, we argued, and when I couldn't take it anymore, I agreed to take her shopping on a budget for peace to reign. Then I invested the rest of the money in my business. I did that for Avery because I loved her, even when she was insensitive as. I mentioned earlier that with the addition of bikes and bicycles, our delivery business boomed, allowing us to cover more areas than before. It even reached the point where I had to resign from my main and side jobs to focus more on my business. I did everything possible to ensure it moved to the next level. The money I earned monthly was enough to pay my share of the rent and bills, with whatever was left going towards paying off the loans I owed. About 2 months after my business started improving, Avery stopped contributing to the household expenses. She claimed I was now doing well financially and could support the household like a man. She said she was tired of splitting everything 50-50ths with me when I earned more than double her monthly salary. Initially, I thought she was joking, but when she refused to contribute to rent or other bills that month, I realized she wasn't. I tried to explain to her that it wasn't wise for me to shoulder the entire financial burden of the house, as it would hinder rather than propel me forward. However, she refused to listen. Besides, I had to return the investment money to my friend, along with a hefty interest. She told me she had friends whose husbands earned less than I did but still managed to care for their wives, kids, and family independently. She questioned why I couldn't do the same. This question felt like a slap in the face, but I didn't let it get to me. At that point, I was tired of constantly arguing with Avery. It was as if she had changed as soon as the money came in. With my business barely flourishing as I had hoped, I found myself paying all the bills at home. I single-handedly covered the rent, bought groceries, and paid for gas every month. I'd be lying if I said that doing all of that did not affect my business, because it did. I hated that Avery kept acting like the business was mine alone. My primary reason for opening a business was that I didn't want to be doing a 9-to-5 with overtime for the rest of my life, and I didn't want that for Avery. Everything I did was so we could have a good life and possibly give our children the kind of lives we never had. But the more Avery came up with her demands and expectations, the more I felt that she was not interested in my business in any way. I married her because I believed she had a flair for business and we were on the same page. She used to tell me how she would love us to own multiple businesses together across the country and even around the world. But when the time came for us to grow the only business we had together, she changed into a totally different person. She stopped contributing to the house and preferred to use the money she earned to shop for clothes, shoes, wigs, and whatever else she wanted, while I took care of the bills. For another year and some months, I tolerated her and tried to grow my business. Sometimes she would take my credit card for shopping with her girlfriends and max it out, so you can imagine what I was going through financially. It was more like 1 step forward and 3 steps backward for my business, and for a few months, it continued like that. Unfortunately, I couldn't continue because I had to pay back the money with interest, and I ran into serious debt issues and had to fold up for a while. It became so bad that I had to sell all my bikes, my personal car, and family jewelry and heirlooms to settle the debt. At the end of it, I was left with nothing, not even a penny saved. When this happened, I went through hell in Avery's hands. When I folded up my business, she began to say terrible things to me. She said something about how we could have used the money from the funding to live good lives, but because of my greediness, I lost everything. As if her bad-mouthing and verbal lashings were not enough. She changed completely. Earlier, we used to split the household chores, but when my business tanked, she told me to do my laundry, cook my own meals, and clean the house since I was apparently jobless. She literally used every opportunity she had to rub it in my face that she was making money while I was unemployed. Without a business, I was aggressively applying for jobs so that I could cover my expenses. After suffering such a huge loss, business was the last thing on my mind, survival was first. Around that time, I noticed she was always smiling and typing on her phone. Then she came home with expensive gifts like bags, jewelry, shoes, and clothes. I knew she could not afford them because her salary could not buy even 1 bag, and she would have to save her salary for at least 4 months to get one of those expensive bags. As soon as I noticed her new pattern of coming home late with expensive things every week, I questioned her about it. Each time I did, she would abuse me and remind me that I didn't have the right to question her because I was jobless and would never be able to buy those things for her. With her new attitude, I knew we wouldn't get intimate, and that's what happened. She stopped sleeping in the bedroom because she knew I would try to touch her, and just like that, our marriage became a nightmare. In the twinkling of an eye, I think 2 or 3 months after she started coming home with expensive stuff, it was hurtful and suffocating for me to tolerate her tantrums. But at that point, my priority was getting a job ASAP. However, one evening, she came home and told me she wanted a divorce. She said she could no longer tolerate being married to me and revealed that she married me because she thought I had a promising future, but so far, she wasn't impressed. I didn't try to beg or convince her. I kind of knew that it was coming. I was already tired of everything and believed divorcing each other was the right thing to do, even though I loved her. I could not live or remain married to a woman who mocked, insulted, and made me feel worthless at the slightest opportunity she had. So, I signed the papers, and she moved out of the house before our divorce was finalized. Shortly after we divorced, I was at home thinking about my life when she sent a message on Facebook. When I opened it, it was a picture of her in a bikini on a yacht with my rich friend. He was the same rich friend that funded my business, and I couldn't have felt more betrayed. At that point, everything made sense: the expensive gifts, perfumes, her returning home late, the new attitude, and finally, when she wanted a divorce. I couldn't even cry because what she had done surpassed the stage of expressing my heartbreak and tears. I even felt bad for her because my rich friend had a track record of using women, and he had been divorced 4 times. In response to the picture she sent to mock me, I typed, "Enjoy it while it lasts," and then blocked her. Moving on was difficult, especially with no job and no one to support me financially and emotionally. It was so rough, and there were days I thought of ending things because I was mentally in a very dark place. I even moved in with my younger brother because I could not afford to pay rent or take care of my basic needs. Some of my friends tried to support and help me occasionally. For months after Ava left me,